Baba. Thank you all for coming. This is something that I've been feeling like doing for a long time, and I just felt like this experience that we all had of being there either right before or during her funeral and pyre was such, I mean, for me, one of the more impactful experiences of my life. So I just felt like this was something that should be recorded, that should be, held for posterity, because the experiences were extraordinary. So I'm just gonna lay out a little bit of the flow of the time as I kind of envision it, because we have a lot of people here who have we'll be hearing stories from various different vantage points, which will be really wonderful. But I want to kind of have it be a flow. So I'm going to open a little bit with a story that I have never shared before, and so I want it to be recorded because it's related to a dream that I had of Mehera that Mani wound up making a copy of and putting it on her cupboard in her bedroom that she had read out pretty much every day from what Shelley told me. So it feels like the story of that I want to share. So I'm going to start out opening with that, and then we're going to go to some time that people were there before she passed, because the weeks leading up to her passing were also quite extraordinary. A lot of wonderful things were happening. The last time Mani was out on the porch with the pilgrims was in February of '96, and then the pilgrim season ended, and then she had a surgery, and there were some medical things that happened, and when she came back to Meherabad, she was never well enough to come out for the pilgrim. So that whole start of the 1996 pilgrim season, she never did come out. But she was in her room, and the pilgrims were allowed to go to Meherabad. So there was a lot of incredible things. So we'll have a little bit of sharing of any stories or remembrances of the weeks before she passed. Then we'll talk about her passing, the day she passed, and her funeral and pyre, which was extraordinary. And then finally, we're going to end with the 3 days after that the pyre was burning, and we have some of the fire keepers here who are going to share some stories with us about that extraordinary time. So, on that note, we'll begin. I want to just start by saying this story, and I'll try to make it as brief as possible, but when I first came to India in 1986 and met Mani, I was only 25 years old, and I felt like I felt like I'd met a queen. And I really wanted so much to live there. And at that time, I was very shy, and I actually asked Mani if I could have a meeting with her, which was, for me, I can't even believe I did that. But in that meeting, I asked her if I would be able to come and live there. I was ready. I just wanted to just move there. I was like ready to pack it all up. I was in graduate school, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be there, and I had this desire in my heart to serve Mani and serve the Mandali in some way. So Mani, she did meet with me, and she was so sweet. She had just met me, and she was in her Mani style. She said, that's very possible, dear. She said, we might be able to make that happen. She said, but first, I think you have to go back to America and finish your schooling, because that's what Baba would want, for you to finish your schooling. Then once you finish your schooling, we'll see what he has in store for you, and then you can come back and we'll talk about it. So I was satisfied with that. Went back to America after traveling all around India for a while. Went back to America and finished my graduate school, but I met Robert as soon as I got back from from India. And lo and behold, my destiny was to not go to India, because Robert and I wound up getting married and having 2 children. So, but I always felt Mani knew that, and she was just trying to let me down easy. But I had that desire in my heart and I never left me. And I got to meet Mani 3 more times after that. And every time I was there, I just longed to be able to do something for Mani. So, then come the last year of her life in 1995, I started having all these amazing Baba dreams. I had so many Baba dreams during those years. I haven't had a Baba dream in 15 years or so now, but he just gave them all to me. And I was in the habit of writing Mani my Baba dreams because she liked that stuff, and she would always enjoy getting a letter with a Baba dream. And so I used to write to her. So in November of 1995, I had the most extraordinary Baba dream. And this is when Mani's health now was starting to go downhill. And I thought, well, I must write this dream to Mani. I know she's not so well, but she will love this dream. So I was writing out this dream, and it was such an intense dream. It was such a long letter. I mean, I have a copy of it right here. And I was in my head, I don't know, Billy will remember this, that Katie Irani had come to America in 1995. And she was, she was in LA, and then she came up to the Bay Area, and she was talking a lot about how the Mandali were all getting older. That was the tip of the iceberg. They were all getting older, and how wonderful it was that all these pilgrims were writing them letters, and and they loved reading them, and she wanted to rest assured that they read them all. But she said, please, please keep them brief. You remember that?
I was at Meherabad. We were at Meherabad when she said that.
Yeah. And so I had that in my head as I'm writing out this long letter to Mani, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I don't know if I should send this letter. Well, right after that incredible Baba dream, I had this dream of Mehera. And this dream was so beautiful, and she in the dream, she talks about Mani. And she had already left. Mehera was no longer here. And in the dream, she was visiting, and I was the only one who could see her. Nobody could see her. So we were walking out in the park, and it was Mehera and I, and my children were there, and they saw her. And I remember saying to Mehera in the dream, Mehera, the children can see you. My children can see you. And Mehera said, oh yes, dear, the children can always see you. And that was really sweet. But then as we were walking along, Mehera saying, she's saying, she said, she was talking about Mani, and she was talking about Mani this and Mani that, and I said to her, oh, you see Mani? And she said, and her response was, oh yes, Mani and I are always together. I'm with Mani all the time. So I had that. I thought I have to share this with Mani, but God, this letter's getting so long. But I thought, I'm just going to do it, and I put it in. Well, it turned out that dream was so significant to Mani that she really just she needed to, during her illness and when she was going through all of that, it meant so much to her to feel that Mehera was with her and that Mehera was there all the time. And so this line that, that Mani and I are always together, I'm always with Mani, she just had it written out and put on her cupboard. And Shelley told me that every day she would make Shelley or Heather read that out to her. And it just, and it says that Alisa Dreyfus, a dream that Alisa Dreyfus had, and, they said that, Mani remembered you so much because she would every day read out that dream. And I felt like, when I got there in July, when, I was so praying that I would get to see her again, and of course I didn't. But I just had this remembrance of the fact that I had that desire in my heart from way back then, and how Baba, in his kindness and his compassion, gave that to me. So I felt like I had the opportunity to give something to Mehera, to be the recipient of something for for Mani that meant so much to her. And that was such an enormous gift for me. So that's the backstory of that dream, if anybody ever sees it, that it's still there till this day. And Meru later had said to me that she felt like that was a very significant, she said, it showed a very significant connection with Mani for me. And so that was just such a gift. So being there at the end of her life, even though I didn't get to see her, was just part of that fulfilling that Baba gave me. So thank you for listening to that. I just wanted to get that story out. And now what I'd like to do is open to anybody who was there in the weeks before Mani passed.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Let me put this on.
You can just hold it like a mic.
It's for recording. You'll have to use your own voice.
But also, Teri, do we all know each other here? I mean, there are people here I don't know that I've
Oh,
never
I'm
met before.
Teri Adams, and this is my son Eruch, and Eruch and my whole family, and Billy, and Tamara, we all came to India at that time, right before Mommy passed away. I think we were there 2 weeks
I can't remember
before.
exactly, how long was it before she passed? We were there.
We were 2 weeks
2 weeks
before
there before.
and 2 weeks after.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
we were right
That's
in the
right.
middle. Anyway, so, yeah, I was hoping to be able to see Mommy or somehow communicate to her. And so my daughter Raina and Katie, I have two daughters, Raina and Katie, and we were in Baba's bedroom, and we would put our ear up against the wall to think, is that Mommy's voice? So we got the idea to write her a little note, just to say how much we love her. And apparently Shelley said that she read that note to, I don't even remember what we wrote, I didn't write it down, or something, that we love her and that we're thinking about her.
Can you speak up?
The microphone isn't doing anything for
It
you.
goes,
I don't
it's just going into
You
the,
have to talk loud.
Oh, I know, I don't talk like, I will try. I will
You'll- you'll-
Anyway, so we were able to get a little message to her before she actually went into a coma. And so that was really lovely. I was in such a malaise. I'm trying to remember some of the things, but we would spend our days in Baba's bedroom with our ear up against the wall, sending Monty love and trying to see if we heard anything. And Shelley would come up and give us reports about her condition. Okay, the day that she passed away, we all went up to the Samadhi for morning arti. And almost the exact same time that Monty dropped her body, my daughter Katie, who had a very deep connection with her, she was, I think she was 13 at the time, she passed out. She goes, Mommy, my heart, and she kind of went out and fainted for just a little bit. And we went, oh, you all right? She goes, I don't know what happened. My heart stopped. And I went, what? And then we find out that was when Mommy dropped her body. Yeah, it was really
7:01.
7:01.
7:01 a.m. right as RT was starting.
Yeah, just as Artie was starting. And so I talked to Katie this morning and I said, is there anything you remember? She goes, I remember that. And then there's other stories, and so I'm gonna put those all together. But anyway, so she passed away, and all I remember was I said we could not take any photographs. Monty did not want any photographs taken of her. So I drew pictures. And they're in here, and I don't know, do you want to wait?
Because we're gonna get to.
Okay.
time.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so we go to Mandalay Hall, and she's lying there in state, and they'll go around, and we can touch her feet, but that's it. We couldn't kiss her or do anything like that. But we were all crying, and I don't even remember how long that happened. And so there's different stages. As you know, they took her body to Lower Meherabad, to Old Mandalay Hall.
We're just doing
Huh?
before Monty passed.
Yeah,
We're trying to
before
like,
Monty passed, we're gonna get to.
Oh,
We're doing it in
before
stages.
Monty passed.
Yeah, just any memories you have before Monty passed.
Just that one where we wrote that message to her. Like I said, I was so sad about Monty that I just don't remember. I remember we had garlands all in our clothes all over the place, and our scarves everywhere, and we were just thinking, Mommy would like it if I wore this color. Mommy, we were thinking like that. And it was just really wonderful to be there with my twin sister. She has wonderful stories, but she didn't get them to me, and my two daughters and my son and Billy, and I think Tamara, yeah. Okay, well, then, do you want to have a turn, honey, or?
Yeah.
Ask,
Barbara, did you have anything?
so
probably
just
remembers.
hearing this, it reminded me, maybe a couple in that lead up. So my experience was interesting because the youth Sahabas had just ended in late July, and really just for reasons of coincidence or fate, a huge amount of campers and counselors and people associated with the youth Sahabas all just happened to be going to India, like at the same time. Several of them even ended up on the same flight, almost by accident. I purposely planned a trip with Drew Meyer, Dana Brooke, and William Files. And so we did our whole trip there. And, you know, we had Nice. No, Nice flew separately with someone else from Walnut Creek. But so, and then we kind of were all like, wow, this is unusual. We're all here. And we get there, and there's so much, it's like tension. It's like the pressure on the dam was building. Because everyone was kind of sad, you know, just everyone, in all my other trips to India, the Mandalay, you know, they can be whimsical and self-deprecating and humorous and all this, but I'd never seen them the mood feel so somber and kind of sad. And so we kind of got there after this big high, and we're like, wow, what does it mean that all these youth Sahabas kids are here? Is there something we should be doing? And there's nothing we could do. There's nothing to help with. And what my mom just said about listening to the door, the closest I got to Mani in that lead up, and I don't remember when, it might have been in the first week, because we all knew she was in her room that she shared with Mehera, you know, right on the side of the building where the porch was. And you could walk around the garden and all that. So I just was walking in the garden, and I saw that tree that I remembered that had once had Baba's face appear on it, that my dad would always tell me stories about, because he was there at the time that was first noticed. And so he would always point it out. He wasn't there on this trip, but I kind of just sat against the wall of the house below a window. I wasn't exactly sure which window. I thought it might be Mehera and Mani's room. And I just was sort of looking at the tree, trying to see like where Baba's face used to be. And then as I sat there, I heard this music. And it was a little music box. And it was just very quietly just floating right out of the window. And I realized, I think Mani's just like right there, just like right behind me. And it was this sort of imagined kind of intimate moment or whatever. And then the other unusual thing that happened, again, I'm trying to think about is there any significance about all of these young people being here? And maybe, I was holding out for Mani to suddenly recover. I didn't know really medically what was going on. And just in my own head decided something like, well, I don't know, all these youthful people, maybe we can just take on some of her suffering and make this go easier. Just not a good idea. The next day, I just happened to be the only one of like 10 people who went to the Ashoka, which is this little restaurant. And I got sicker than I have ever been. I nearly died sick. Like I wasn't heavy to begin with. I lost like 10 or 15 pounds. I was really sick. And then get to the point where I'm like, I started thinking about, wait, was this because of that thought I had? And I started kind of reeling it back. I'm like, maybe that was presumptuous of me to get in the middle of whatever's going on here. And I was really sick. These guys remember, he was like,
It was
I
terrible.
was completely out of it. But that, a lot of my trips to India have to do with getting sick for one reason or another. It's like hard, but earlier, even when I was 3, there's always like memories of just like, Baba just knocks me down for the count for a while. That's like part of the trip. So that was just an interesting experience about it. But eventually I got better. But yeah, as far as beforehand, those were the two that.
Eruch, do you remember at Isahabas that year that we circled Baba's house and sang "Open Up the Door"?
Yeah.
And we sang it for money and.
Yeah, Mitchell Rose was doing a video workshop that
Yeah.
year, and he filmed us doing the whole thing and ended up on an edited little film. It's actually on YouTube somewhere. All the different, we did video workshops as just a fun thing, and then at the very end, the entire youth Sahabas surrounded Baba's house and sang the song that she wrote the words to, "Open Up the Door," that Buzz put to music. And then, yeah, we were all holding hands around and singing that.
And that wave of singing and just kind of all the Isahabas energy just like just rolled over to India, especially with that song and Victory Unto Thee, which was just a song that you guys sing all that whole Sahabas. There were a few songs like that, but it felt meaningful that you were singing it as in that group, and then so many of you were there singing.
Yeah, it was a very charged Yusahabas. You know, maybe some people don't know. Mani was basically
Yeah, I was gonna say that,
the
yeah.
patron of the Yusahabas.
Exactly.
I would say, along with Kitty giving her initial blessing, the very first Sahabas was right before Kitty died. But Mani was like, they checked with Mani, just even though she's all the way over there, she was just like, well, what do you think? Should we do this thing? Because they don't usually do Sahabas of any kind at the Baba Center in Myrtle Beach. And she was enthusiastic about it. And over the years would dig through their cupboards and chests to find special items, you know, that were, some of them touched by Baba, and then they would get people, you know, make them into individual little wrapped plastic things with shells that were poured into Baba's hands. Or the first year they made custom bookmarks. I still have mine with a picture of Baba and like actual flower petals and some words written on it. So she was always a big supporter of the Yusahabas. So during that whole 96 year, which I remember as being one of the 2 or 3 like most charged Sahabases that I can recall, it was in the back of everybody's mind. We kept bringing up news from India and about Mani, and so.
And just as an aside, a little coincidence, Jane Haynes was diagnosed with cancer in that post-Sahabas, and I was there on the porch at Meherabad, and Jane's son John had just found out. So it wasn't known and it wasn't talked about, but because I'm a nurse, because I was just talking to him, he told me that. So there was this extra layer of, oh my God, they're just going.
That's so amazing.
Sharing that.
That's what I mean, there was so many extraordinary coincidences that happened during that time.
There were, it was like, I have to say, it was a unique experience. By the way, Barbara, thank you for having this here. This place is fantastic. I've never been here. It's really a lovely space. Thank you. It was like, I will say this, it was like heaven opened up and Baba brought his sister home. It had this magical quality to it. I mean, the real magic was always being with Mani when she was alive. Let's face it, that's that. But this particular time, it was so powerful. It was like the atmosphere was vibrating at a higher level. And for me, leading up to it, I had a new song I was working on. I don't want to go. So I was working on that. So I sang it in Mondeley Hall, and I had forgotten about this until I was there this past September. Casey and Shelley told me, says, you know, when you first sang that song in Mondeley Hall, we were with Mani in the house, and we could hear you. You sing really loud. Yeah, I belted out. So they said, we heard you, and we left for a minute. There was a servant there. There was someone there with Mani, but they left and came into Mondeley Hall to hear the song. To hear the song, and they were telling me how much it meant to them, and they said Mani heard it. Just so you know, Mani heard that song, which has become my most successful song commercially ever. So that's good. But that was
That was a gift.
that was I don't know what that is. I don't know about all that, but it was. I'd forgotten about that, and they reminded me when I was there this past September. And I was also really sick this past when I was there this time, but I did make it to Meherabad, and they asked me to sing it on the porch, so I did. And then they reminded me of the story that Mani heard it while she was laying there in a coma. She was in the coma at that point.
And one of the things that really I remember so well, I do remember you singing that song actually, and how like it had a really, you know, I had heard that song before, but it had a poignancy that was definitely, you know, more vibrating than normal. But I also have a memory of Kokila, Leela Nandevi's daughter, who I don't remember how old she was. She was probably 13, 14 at the time. And she was a beautiful violinist. And she would just go, you know, just this beautiful young girl would go and she would sit on the veranda outside the house and just play Begin the Begin and open up the door. And she would just be there, like while we were at Meherabad, and you just hear this beautiful violin playing going on throughout, the whole Meherabad. And it was so touching because she was just doing it from such love in her heart for Mani. And that was, I just really remember that well. Yeah. So, Barbara, is there anything that you would like to?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it until you began to talk about after Mani's passing. But 96 was the year that Kipper and I went out from San Diego. And it was a trip we had planned for a long time, and we ended up, escorting the woman who was not a Baba lover, who had won the Los Angeles raffle. That was how they raised money. It was a free trip to India, and she happened to win it for the time that Mani was dying. And the more I think back on it, the more amazed I am at the Mandali for having hosted us, for having taken care of us and been hospitable and generous and sensitive and caring about us at a time when they were so obviously miserable. I mean, really, anybody else would have just thrown in the towel. But I remember just being so struck by how strong Eruch was and how miserable he was at the same time. And, he couldn't give way to it. And I actually felt anger from him, not at us, but just that this was happening to Mani. I think he was just really affected by the unfairness of somebody that wonderful having to go through something so dreadful, and the end really was quite horrible. So Kipper and I went over, and we went over with this woman. We went in the middle of July, so it was, I think, about the 19th of July we left San Diego, and we got home on the 10th of August, so we were there sort of toward the end of her life. It was toward the end of her life. We were sent over by Adele Walken with a whole suitcase full of Ensure, that kind of, super calorated stuff that they feed people to try to keep them going. And I saw Janet Files just last Sunday. We were talking about that time that we went over with our children, and something funny had happened just before. Well, two things. One was still something that reverberates in our family. Our son Tim drowned on the 14th of July that week in a neighbor's pool, and he was found dead. And Kipper was the one who found him. So we were in a kind of a very stretched and sensitive state, but they helicoptered him to the hospital in San Diego and managed to save him. And but Kipper was still a basket case, and yet we had this plan to go to India, and Kipper loved Mani. I mean, he had met her when he was 7, and he wrote her a job application. That was his response. Please, can I come and be your assistant and work for you? And we have the letter she wrote him back. She was really tickled by his letter. But so we had been through that, and by the time that our tickets were marked for and we were planning to go, Tim was at home and recovering in Jay's care, and later made a complete recovery. And so we just decided we would go anyway. And it was just one of those times when sort of you're more sensitive to things anyway, and we just decided that it was really important to get there. The other thing that I was going to mention is just before we left, packing up, we decided to go down to Little India in San Diego, a neighborhood we really loved a lot. And on a grocery store window, there was a picture of Upasani Maharaj, Godavari Mai, and Sai Baba. And it had some writing on it and had an address around the corner from where we lived in Encinitas. And we went, who are these people? What is this about? And we met them, and it turned out it was a family that was hosting the Kanyas, the nuns from Sakari, which is the ashram where Upasani Maharaj was, and where Mehera first met Baba. And so we knew we had to do something about that. So we made friends with the people who were hosting them, and then we were in India for the first time. Minu Barucha offered to take people to Sakari and Shirdi because he had been there as a young man. It's where he met Baba. And so we went and met the Kanyas who were left in place in India, and they said, we're coming over to see you. And sure enough, 2 weeks later when we got home, they met up with the other Kanyas who were traveling around America and seeing Niagara Falls and, the Mississippi River and all this stuff. And they all met up around the corner from us, and we became really close friends. And it's always just been just kind of an inner tie to that place and those people that had happened around that same time. So we left as Mani was dying, and I know that when we went over, we were sort of aware that she was in her last days, but not really sure how close to it because it had been going on for several months. But it was after we returned that we got the news, and I think Kipper was especially affected by it. Not that he hoped to actually work for her, but he really, cared for her, and just to know that she wasn't going to be there anymore to see. Very much affected him. Anyway, there were a lot of people who passed through, and I wasn't even really entirely aware of all of us who were there at the same time, probably eating meals at tables nearby and visiting and traveling in the bus and whatever. But it is interesting that it was kind of a full cast of people who were there all at one time.
There was no coincidence who was there. Obviously, the people who were there were meant to be there. But it is amazing. Like I hear about different people. Somebody would say, "Oh, so and so was there. So and so was there." It's like it was such an intense focus on what was happening that I mean, I do remember the LA crew being there because I was from California too, and I knew most of them. But there was like so many other people. Like I forgot that you were there, Annie, and Charlotte was there. Because I remember Charlotte and my kids were really close friends during that time. And so it was just such there was so much focus on what was happening day to day with Mani, like that you just couldn't even really take in the pilgrim experience in the same way. Well, thank you for that, Barbara. That was really good. So anybody else have anything that they want to share? Otherwise, I think we'll move on to the... Oh,
I wanted to share one thing in the pre, sorry. I just wanted to share one thing in the pre. I was there with my daughter who's 7, Charlotte. And the Youth Sahabas, everybody made a page in a book for Mani. I mean, it was the big art tent thing. And it was the last thing she looked fully through. So Shelley told me that, and I forgot to say that. But I wanted to say that I'm a nurse, and at the time, I was really heartbroken that I couldn't see Mani. And I'm shaking about this because I forgot this until we were talking, but 3 times Goer came out and found me and sat and talked to me, medical person to medical person, debriefed, because Mani had, she just had this horrible path through the medical stuff and suffered, and Goer just came out and dumped it on me, but did it in this way that I felt so, it just had such a meaning for me to go back in my work. And I think that Goer did that a lot with people who were helpers, and the Mandali did that a lot who were helpers. But it just, I felt useless and helpless, and then she said, basically, can we sit over here? And then she just started talking. And it was just like doctor to nurse, colleague to colleague. And I had completely forgotten it. I mean, it's probably in a journal.
That's kind of reminds me that, you had that desire in your heart, Papa gave that to you. That's beautiful. So now we're going to switch to the moment that she passed. And, like Eruch had pointed out, it was like building up and building up. And we all sort of knew it was imminent because people were doing around the clock, sitting with her all night. And so they were anticipating that it was very close. So the morning of, I actually would like to just read a little bit of a journal entry because it's the freshest that I have. And that's how I knew the time, because Mani dropped her body at 7:01 a.m. And the one thing that was interesting was the night before Mani dropped her body, We were staying at Jal and Dolly's because my kids were not old enough to stay at the Pilgrim Center. And there was a huge Baba family gathering there. Mehera, or Johnny was there, Eruch and the kids. It was a big Parsi celebration at Jal and Dolly's house, which I remember we were there, so we got to participate in. And it was just almost like a feast of celebration before Mani's passing. Of course, nobody really realized that she was going to pass that night, but the timing of that was quite interesting.
So they were celebrating her departure?
What?
Were they celebrating her?
No, they were just all having a big celebration. I don't
It
know.
could have
remember.
been Indian Independence Day, which is the 15th, and
Yes,
it's
it
a
might
big
have been
celebration in general.
There was a lot of holidays.
Yeah,
That
Cal's
was-
birthday.
No, I mean, during that trip, I just remember every week there was a different holiday. I learned about Brother Sister Day, which my sister came up to me expecting something, and I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing, you know. It was a constant holiday.
So that the night that Mani died, I slept very fitfully. I mean, and Teri shared the story of her daughter. I mean, the energy was so intense. I didn't know. And then we got up that morning, we went to RT. And then when we came down from RT is when we saw the board, which I have a picture of that board. And unfortunately, we were going to show slides, but I'll show you. It just said, Mani went to Baba. And it was just so like coming down from RT. Yeah, the chalkboard outside how they have the notes on there about what's going to happen for the day. And then they were saying that everybody was going to get on a bus and go to Meherabad. I mean, I just want to just read this little journal entry because it says, we just returned from Meherabad. So after breakfast, we all boarded the bus and we went to Meherabad where she was laid out in Mandali Hall at the foot of Baba's chair. And there was lots of people there, and it was the first time that we got to see her body. It was the first time I got to see her on that trip. And so I can just read my impression here. We just returned from Meherabad where we all got to bid farewell to our dear sweet Manija, Baba's beloved little sister. Well, needless to say, it was intense. So filled with deep emotion, contradictory, deep love and joy, and also such intense sadness. She looked like a china doll. Her face was like fine porcelain. She looked so peaceful and contented. Her skin, so white, yet so radiant, emanated from her. She looked so much like Baba, wrapped up with the scarf surrounding her with so many beautiful flowers. It was like, I remember that feeling of I could just see Baba's face. I saw the resemblance. As I approached her in the line, I began sobbing uncontrollably. Amrit looked up. She was sitting by Mani's body, and she just grabbed my hand. Mm-hmm. As I bowed to her, deep gratitude welled up from within me, and all I could say was thank you again and again for all she gave to me and all of us, for the gift of the magnitude of her presence in my life, and also a prayer that she helped me to remember Baba and to inspire me in his love. The music performed by Ted and Ward was the fragrant backdrop on which we all viewed her form one last time. She looked so pure and innocent lying at Baba's feet. The children were so moved. Josh said, my son, said, Mommy, he was 8. He said, Mommy, Baba needs her now more than we do. Be happy, she's with Baba. And he was so open and soft.
We were, because of Mommy's request, I think I said this already, she didn't want any photographs taken at all. So I drew different pictures. I'm gonna pass it around because I don't think anybody, anyway, I drew a picture and I have it in my mind. She had a green scarf around her head and a pink scarf, and I don't know what, some other pink thing underneath her. And she had pink and yellow and I think light pink, dark pink, and yellow roses around her. And so she was placed, if you can see this, probably not, there was Baba's chair, and her head was at the feet of his chair just off to the side, so people could walk around or sit there. And I remember my daughter Katie said, Mom, she doesn't look like she passed away. look at her cheeks are pink. She looks so beautiful. And we, I don't remember so much because I was in such grief at the time, and all I know is that there was a beautiful, beautiful, just like she said, a beautiful love emanating in that room. It was, it's the type of love that you can't explain with your head, only your heart, and that people were feeling that. And we sat there for quite a while. It was from like 9 a.m. to, I think, 11. We were there for a couple hours before the ambulance got her and took her up to
Lower
Lower
Meherabad.
Meherabad, Old Mandalay Hall.
No, first she went to Lower
No.
Meherabad and Old Mandalay Hall, and then they brought her up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, I took a bunch of, I drew, I couldn't take, I drew some photographs.
Took some
And
photographs.
I drew some photographs because we were not supposed to have any. Anyway, I have different pictures, and there's little explanations here about them and writing in the back, and I'm just gonna pass this around, and it's old, so just I'm gonna let people look at it. This is the closest we're gonna get to photographs today.
Except I drew pictures too. So
Huh?
I drew some pictures too.
You did?
Do you have them
bring
with you, Annie?
Oh, yeah.
I'll pass them around.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, good idea.
Pass them around.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, good idea, thanks, Annie. And while you were there, you drew pictures?
I drew pictures when I got home.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have to say, I usually remember a lot of details when I'm in India, especially, I remember so much. This was like a malaise because, like I said, it wasn't in my head. I was feeling so much, and I was so sad, and yet happy. I don't know, it was a mixed emotion. But when Eruch mentioned that he got ill, Danny twisted his ankle. Lynn's son, Danny McGuire, I don't know if any of you know about Danny, but he was on crutches, and I wrangled my arm, my shoulder so badly. I don't even know how. So I was in a shoulder brace that actually belonged to Mommy, and Eruch was sick, and something happened to Raina. I mean, we were all suffering in some way, but I mean, it's what happened. We look like a pitiful group. Do you remember that, Danny and crutches?
I do, I have a picture of it.
Yeah, you probably do.
I did.
So how much should we go to different?
Yeah,
I
maybe,
was
yeah,
gonna
let's,
say,
give him your moment.
it's okay, I'll just talk about it. I remember the going to Meherabad, and the line to approach Monty and bow down to her was it was at the front, Baba's chair in the front of Mandalay Hall, and then the line went out the back towards Mehera's garden. And I was standing in the line, and I knew I was pretty sure Monty was gonna pass while we were there. We'd been entrusted with taking some medication that one would use in a hospice situation. And so I had taken, being the Southern boy that I am, I took a really starched white collared shirt. I don't know if you remember that. I was wearing so the day we're going over there, I put on this shirt, and Jeff McGuire looked at me and goes, "Where the hell did you get a shirt that doesn't have wrinkles?" I said, "I came prepared." But we're waiting in that line, and Eruch Jesawala is walking towards the back to go out in Mandalay Hall, and he glanced at my shirt, but then I just heard him say to no one, he just said, "My work is done." Because one of the jobs Baba had entrusted him with was looking after Mommy. So he kind of was shuffling, and he was a little, I don't know, he was just, because he was never not in control or poised or whatever you call it, but he was in a state that I had never seen him, but he felt like my work is done. I remember hearing him say
Yeah,
that.
he says that again at the pyre too.
Well, in that, there's little drawings that finally Mani went into Baba's samadhi. She went into the tin room, what's it called,
Tin shed.
tin shed, they put her there, put her on near Mehera's, a tomb, little tomb there, and then they brought her up, and how do you say that, the mountain? Yeah, they brought her there, and there, she was there for quite a while, and all of my family, the girls, and Pamela Butler-Stone, for some reason, she had this journal with her, and we got the idea of thinking of all of us, everybody we knew that wasn't there, that would have loved to been there. And that was like Shireen and Jay Bonner, the Ronnie's, Marilyn, Molly, his family that couldn't be there. So we wrote names, and there was one big garland we put on top of her, and it stayed on with her until the fire. And we put their names, put them in the garland. Hundreds of names. Katie was thinking of her friend. We were just thinking of everybody that we knew. And we put these little names everywhere inside her garland. And yeah, and that was something. And then from there, I remember, from there that was her last kind of stop before they brought her to where the funeral, where her pyre was. And do you want to remember that?
Yeah, well, let's
You're jumping ahead.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead there.
I was just gonna say, I remember, like Billy said, just in the line, we kind of lined up along the side of Mondley Hall, and then went around to the barn doors, and then approached Monty from like the back. And then usually when people put a flower, or I don't know if we were doing garlands quite yet, or they had individual flowers, I think at this point. There was a lot of flowers that day, so you got to keep track. My memory was just the mood in the room. It was still that, like, I still felt that the tension was different, but it was still like sadness. And at this point, I remember the view of all the Mondley. They were kind of along that wall where Eruch usually sits. Eruch just was kind of that far wall on the right side if you're coming in the back door. They were kind of all lined up, and they just looked very sad. And we were all feeling very sad. And I had an unusual experience for me. I had a kind of the passing of somebody. Usually I kind of stay sad. But I had this experience when I bowed down and just put a flower on her and just kind of thought about all the things Monty was and had been to me, and just whether it was entertaining or telling us stories in Mondley Hall or the odd letter or whatever. And then when I kind of came up and looked at her again, I had this real strong experience. Even though she looked very beautiful, I had this experience that I was looking at Monty's like coat, that Monty wasn't there anymore. That it was really just, it was the thing that somebody takes off, as beautiful as it is, and they leave it behind them when they're done with it. And it just like changed my thinking completely. And I was almost in shock a little bit because everyone was mourning around me, and I was trying to digest it. And I also kept having this funny feeling at the back of the hall, like where the doors are open and it's very bright. Mm-hmm. And I kept looking back as if there's something there, and I sat down, and I'm reluctant to call it a vision because I didn't see it, but I just kept having this like waking dream thought, and it was the same thing. I kept looking back, and what I saw was Baba and Mehera and Monty all standing at the back, looking at everybody, but they were smiling as if they were saying, like, what are they upset about? You know, and like Bob would kind of just like, can you believe these guys? Like, what are they sad about? And Monty saying, I'm exactly where I need to be. So it reminded me of what you just said about Josh saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, Monty was elated. Like in this mind's eye picture, she was elated, Mehera was elated, Bob was elated. And they were all kind of poking fun at the Mondley for being so sad about it or whatever. And for me, that was like this moment where the dam broke, that tension and the sadness and the whatever. And I just felt this intense upliftment, so much to the point that I actually had to leave a little early. And I found Drew, and for some reason he had something similar. And so we just decided, we were like, I don't know, I just feel like this euphoria, like we gotta get out of here because everyone else is really sad. And so we ran up to Seclusion Hill, and it was an unusual day, and we actually didn't know how long we were gonna be there. They just said, we're going at 9, and right? Like there was no plan exactly, and so we didn't know how much time. And we're up there, and we're like screaming and hollering because it was just this like relief, because I had just been sick, and
How old were you at that?
I was 19, and I'm talking about my friend Drew Meyer, who's Jim Meyer's son. If anybody doesn't, if that helps, that was always his nickname, Jim Meyer's son. We were both 19 at the time, so like over a year out of high school, and it was our first like adult trip on our own to India. We traveled together. Anyways. And we were just kind of having this odd, very euphoric moment, and then we hear the bell to board the bus, and we're like, uh-oh, they're gonna leave us here, and I was like, I do not want to get left behind, and I don't think the Mongolians will appreciate this.
Gonna ride back
And
in
so
the ambulance.
instead of taking the like trail, takes a good 10 minutes to get back, we were like, we're not gonna make it, and we just booked it straight down the hill. And we both had this like weird, I don't know, it was almost like a past life memory, like we've done this before in another lifetime or something. I don't know if it was that hill or what, but we just booked it straight down and made the bus just before it took off.
Yeah, I remember going, where's Eric?
I was like, I don't think anyone's gonna notice that we're gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I have what?
I asked Kipper, who is actually at home minding his daughter Elizabeth, I asked him if there's anything that he wanted to say at the meeting that he'd just like to have me read out. And he said, I'm certain that anyone that met her was captivated by her love, her zeal. She also had a very stern and fiery side when things seemed out of line. I feel like I remember walking into a conversation at the Trust where she was quite cross regarding some conversation, but was instantly warm-hearted as soon as she saw me. Can that be? Would she have been spending any time at the Trust during my first visit? So that was when he was 7, and that was 7 years before her death. So of course, yes. But it was just a 7-year-old's impression of watching somebody go from like, shh, to, oh.
They were masterful at that when she was, That's beautiful. Well, speaking of memories of a child, I know Jeremy was here, and he was also there as a little child. You were how old? 7 or 8?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you remember from a child's perspective?
It was my first trip to India. It was my only trip as a kid.
Do you want to come up, Jeremy? Just
Sure.
to, maybe people can hear you better.
Like up there.
Yeah, come on. Coincidence that Jeremy's here. He just happens to be in Asheville, and I just saw him the other night. He was like, I was there too.
Hello. I could just stand, it's fine.
No, you just
Okay, great. Yeah, I was in India, my dad, my sister, and I, and also a few other people from New York that we knew. That Tim Collins and Marilyn Sidis and also Laurel and Glenn were there, although I think they had already been there for a while because they were living there at the time.
Yeah, I think it was.
All of my memories are very, very hazy, if at all. I don't know if I actually have any memories or it's just people have told me things and I've integrated them as memories, but we were there before Mani died. We were there for 3 weeks and I don't really know like where Mani's passing fit into our trip, but yeah, I mean, my memories are just that I didn't get to meet Mani, obviously, but she gave me, through Laurel, like a little toy. Like, I guess there were toys that she had played with. Mm-hmm. This is what I remember Laurel saying. Laurel could probably confirm this better. But there was like a little toy of like a 6-piece puzzle of a cow, like in a field with a bell on it. And it was like in this wooden frame with like a plexiglass cover that you kind of slide in. So I still have that somewhere. And also my dad, I think, had brought another toy of, do you guys know these kind of birds that are weighted in such a way that the beak of the bird can it can sort of float on something? So I think my dad had given that to Mani to look at or play with through Laurel or through somebody, and it was then given back to us. And I don't know, it must not have been Mani. Someone that was caring for Mani must have written, like, given to and from Mani on these such and such dates. So I didn't get to meet her, but I did get like these little artifacts from her, which is kind of nice. And I was there at when you guys haven't talked about the about her
The pyre,
cremation. Are you
yeah.
guys gonna talk
Yeah,
about
we
that?
will. Oh, for
Okay.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And just for everybody, not everybody here knows who Mani really is. I mean, some of us are relatively new to Baba. So
Oh.
we're talking about Baba's young sister, who was something like 19 years younger than him, but also that she died on the 19th of August in 1996.
Yeah.
So these are memories from that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were there.
I was there. Yeah, and my sister, who was 6 years older than me, so I was 7, she was 13, and I have pictures somewhere, and there were a lot of kids there. But I didn't,
Yeah.
I think you.
no, I didn't know any, but like I'm sure that I met them all because we all like hung out.
We're all running
at-
around.
Yeah, like I do remember being in Meherabad running around with all the kids, but I had never met any of them before, and I never, to my knowledge, met any of them again like later on in my childhood. But now if there was like a roster of all the kids that were there, I probably have met them all since. So, I mean, I know Josh and Monty Dreyfus, I know Charlotte, you know, all these other people, so, but I wasn't, like in New York, there weren't other Baba kids around my age, so I don't think there were other kids there that I had known previously other than my sister. So that's kind of it. I mean, I was also very sick that trip. Like basically from the moment I landed in Bombay, I was sick. Like we stayed at the Leela Hotel for just a few hours before the driver picked us up, and we like had a meal, and I was already like sick as a dog. Like I just was like underneath the dining room table in the restaurant at the Leela, like not doing very well. And that continued at the MPC also. So it was an interesting trip, but I sadly don't really have like a lot more, well, I didn't meet Mani, I don't really have a lot of like vivid memories at this point of the trip. But I do remember being at the cremation.
The pyre.
Do
Yeah.
you have a memory that you want to share? Or are we not there yet?
Oh, no, it's okay. I just want to, I think there's a couple more stories, but
Yeah.
we want to hear it.
All right.
Yeah.
It's not much, but
Well,
do you want to come
say it
back
now.
or?
Just
Yeah,
share.
I'll just share. I mean, the one thing I remember of the cremation, I didn't remember this, but my dad told me this later, that my sister was upset at my dad. She was like, do you really think Jeremy should be like seeing someone being cremated? Like it's going to be traumatic for him. This is like not her exact words, but I'm paraphrasing what my dad said that Ariel said to him. And apparently his response was like, yes, I actually do think that he should be here, and I think he's going to get a lot out of it. So I don't remember being scared or upset or anything, and I think because I didn't know Mani personally, I wasn't really sad to my recollection. But it was really, it was very charged, I remember that, and it was really like physically hot. Like I just have a distinct sense memory of it just being extremely, extremely hot. So I don't know, that's just a child's perspective, and I maybe had never been to like a big, fire before, but that was just my recollection. It was just like waves of heat coming off of the pyre. So
Yeah, it was very hot.
yeah, that's all.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for letting me share.
I just wanted to share a couple of little stories of when she was up by Baba's Samadhi. I don't remember as much when she was in Lower Mandali Hall, except that a lot of family was arriving from Bombay, and so they were really keeping her there for a while until the family could get there. But then when they brought her up the hill, and they, as Teri was sharing, they brought her into the tin shed first, and then when they brought her into the Samadhi, they put her on Baba's right, I guess, I don't know, I'm not left-right channel, so excuse me, but the side of Mehera's, they
Yeah.
put her right down next to Baba's Samadhi, and my daughter and my daughter and I, miraculously, I think because we were up there early or something, we got to be right in that window where, between Mehera and Baba, and so the two of us were standing in that window looking, and when they brought her in, they put her right down there. And I'll never forget, when she got into that Samadhi, her face, it was like she was like alive. All this color came into her face, and my daughter, who was 6 years old at the time, Mani, she just said, Mom, I think she's alive, She was like, what wait, they need to stop the action, she's alive. But it was like and I remember she just got this beautiful blush of pink in her face, and she just looked sublime in Baba Samadhi. So, and then the other quick memory I have is when they put her out on the Sava Mandap, that the line, as Billy was pointing out, but the line was going like down the hill to people coming and just bringing flowers, and the flowers were piling up more and more. And my daughter, again, I was so charged with emotion, and my daughter kept going and sitting right by Mani's head and like just staring at her face. And Adi Dubash kept coming by saying, no, come get, everybody stay away from Adi, he was, and so I kept having to pull my daughter back, and then I would like lose track of her again, and then she'd be there again, and like 3 times this happened, and Adi kept saying, please keep her back. And so I was trying really hard to keep her back, but I couldn't keep her back, and I just was getting so frustrated because I wanted to just be in this moment. And finally Jaldas Store came over to me, and he just, he said, just leave her alone. I said, but Adi, don't worry about it. He said, just leave her alone. You have no idea what's going on there. Just leave her alone. And so I was able to just let it go. And she just sat there the whole time, right next to Mani's face, and just stared at her. So that was, I don't really know what her experience was, but it was that was such a moving memory for me because it was my daughter. So,
Who was named for Mani?
Yeah, it was a beautiful, she was very, I don't know, she had some connection. I don't really know what that experience was for her, but I could not keep her away, that's all I know. So, you guys have any memories of the Samadhi?
Very much so. One was that Katie, when we were in Meherabad, had asked me, Katie Irani, one of the Mani, who, as Alisa pointed out, I was pretty close to. I'd organized a trip to the U.S. with her the year before. And she had asked me to meet her when they arrived at the hill, to just she wasn't super steady on her feet. As you know, she was known for falling down. And so I met the car, and they got out, and I was walking with Katie with her arm, and she had a cane, a little something or something like that. But anyway, so I was just with her, and she wanted to go near the entrance to the Samadhi, to the door. And it was, I'm just going to say, she wanted me to help keep her steady, but I would say this, there's no words I can tell you how wild it felt when they brought Mani's body to the Samadhi. I've never felt anything that felt just so uncontrolled. I have no words. It was just the wildest sensation I'd ever felt.
Yeah, I was rereading something I'd written at the time. It was the loudest Avatar Meherabad Ki Chase I have ever heard in my life.
They hurt your ears.
They were just like, it was being said, almost spontaneity, just spontaneity.
It's on and on and on and on.
But so loud, like it was just echoing. And we were on the whole, I wasn't even in the Samadhi, right near it. I was kind of behind watching it. But it was just with a lot of energy, a lot of, kind of wild, yeah.
It was wild. I've never, it's like.
So like wild in like a good way? Or
Yeah, good, everything was completely out of control and completely all right at the same time. Like that's what it felt like.
It was like a mela or something. Like
Yeah,
it was like,
yes.
like everybody was vibrating.
Yeah.
And when Mani was in Mandali Hall in Meherabad, I felt like she was like this little child. You wrote about it.
The China doll. Yeah.
And then when they brought her up and put her on the tube, and I was at the opposite window, it was like she turned into Baba.
Yes.
And merged into Baba, and it felt like that, the sort of film that you see of Baba in the tomb before they covered him up, but it was Mani, and she was like gigantic.
Yeah.
And then when they brought her out on the mandap, same thing. It was like everybody was vibrating. And the thing that I was just thinking about when we were talking about your Mani is that my Charlotte was she was like, where is she? And I'd get her, and then they'd be gone. But you felt safe. It didn't feel that way dangerous, but it felt that wild. It's like, who knows? Like, are we ever going to go home again? It's crazy. And then I remember, because I'm a recovering Catholic and all sorts, like I got all sorts of issues. So I'm sort of on the hill, wondering about Charlotte and thinking, they're bowing to Mommy's feet. She's not Baba, but they're bowing to Mommy's feet. And then I look up and there's my daughter, Charlotte, who doesn't have to think like me, bowing to Mommy's feet. And I went, oh shit, that's the last of Baba's body, really. Like right here, so I got one.
Maybe it was love. Maybe that incredible vibration and sensation we all felt. Maybe it was just just love, just pure love, which is matchless in majesty.
You know what it reminded me a little bit of is at Darshan, the love that we felt at Darshan, that indescribable. Like I said, no mind, heart. So I remember saying, my mind's gone. My heart is open for the first time in my life. That's what it felt like with Mani that day. It was just intense and beautiful. And I think everybody, was like vibrating with that love. It was so beautiful, it really was. And
I just want to read something that I wrote because it's reminiscent of what they're all saying. I said, being with Mani today was like being in the presence of God. It felt so holy, almost like being in the time of Jesus. I knew I was with God. It was a palpable, indescribable feeling, so incredibly beautiful. So I mean, it was just like it kind of was almost reminiscent of what it might have felt like when Baba dropped the body. I'm sure that it was kind of like that because she was of the of that close to Baba. Did you want to read something from an excerpt from some?
Sure. So I wrote up a whole story about this, and then while doing research found Heather Nadell had written up an entire account of the day at the time for, I think, Love Street Lamppost or something like that. And even today, like every time I read someone else's account, I learn 10 new facts because we were all kind of just in our own experience and who we were talking to or whatever, but all kinds of other people were having their own experience. So it's been very interesting. But anyways, she just wrote it. She had like good sense of time and order and right through beautifully. At about 5 p.m., once again, Mani was carried into the Swanee, and a caravan of cars, motorcycles, and people on foot wound down the hill to the Meherabad cremation ground at the southernmost end of the property. Mani had always loved the atmosphere of freedom and renunciation surrounding cremation, and especially those that took place at evening time. As her form rested on the pyre, she looked sublime and serene, like the princess she truly is, poignant farewells from her dearest ones, heartbroken with grief. And then all stepped back for the final covering of her form with sandalwood and the finishing of the pyre. Sometime after 6 p.m. at twilight, a time of day she loved, the men of her devoted family, Jangu, Rustam, Saurabh, Dara, Arvind, Meherdil, and Jamshed, lit her pyre to resounding calls of Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. And so what she kind of left out of that was at all of these different points in Mandali Hall and Meherzad and up on the Mandap, and then again before they lit the pyre, whole lines of people, because new people were showing up all the time, and they were buying garland. Everyone had garlands. So there was a stack. I wish we had photos. There was a stack like human height almost of garlands, of tube roses and actual roses, just completely piled on top of her by the end. It was like it was amazing, and it smelled so fragrant and everything.
And wasn't there also, I have a memory that there was like people taking sandalwood and dipping it in ghee, pieces
Yeah.
of sandalwood
Yeah.
and putting it
Yeah.
on the pyre.
She had collected sandalwood almost her whole life.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the one part with Eruch saying his
Yeah.
work was done. Eruch had 2 blocks of sandalwood that Monty had given him, saying that put these on my pyre if I go first. And so Eruch carried those sandalwood blocks and put them under Monty's head. And I happened to be standing right next to him when he was, he had just woven through the crowd. He put those blocks down, and as he walked away from, I'll never forget this, he turned with such force that only Eruch could do, and just said, "My work is done!" And I remember it was such a strong feeling, because I said to Robert, "Oh my gosh, I hope that doesn't mean he's gonna die now," because it
I could
was
finally
it
retire.
was such a fun. And then, later we found out that Baba had told him, like Billy said, that his job was to take care of Mani, and that was the last thing that he had to do, was put those sandalwood blocks under Mani's head. And then just after they lit the pyre, these 2 sadhus came walking down the road that were walking, and Mani's pyre, I guess we'll switch to that now, but Mani, once they lit the pyre, as Billy was saying, that all the family came with the torches, and they lit this incredible, piled up with sandalwood and roses, and they lit it, and as they were lighting the pyre, the smoke that came off of that pyre was pure white. Now, with all that wood and ghee, it was pure white. And there was these sadhus walking down the road, and they saw the pyre burning with white smoke, billowing, just billowing off of it. And they came, and Eruch greeted them, and they said, "What is happening? Who is this that's burning here? This must be a very saintly person, because only a saintly person, a Mahadeva, because only such a one would have white smoke coming off the pyre." And Eruch said, "This is the very, very blessed one. This is the sister of Meherabad." And they came and they paid their respects, and they went on. But they said, "We must come. We saw it from a distance." Yeah.
It was also, I think it might have started that way, but the way Heather wrote it, it was kind of a bluish, a light bluish gray. Like it started white and then it became
and
like
then it became
blue-gray, sort of
But
like
never
traditionally.
black.
Yeah, but
But
not
it
black.
was never black.
It was never black, which is unbelievable. And then the other thing was, it was very windy, and then I think that's what Jeremy was talking about, how hot it was, because the wind was billowing. You know how it can billow down in Lower Meherabad, and it was billowing and billowing. And I remember I was sitting up on the hill, just I got a place up on the hill so I could watch. And at some point, the smoke just started blowing in my direction. And usually when smoke blows in your direction, it burns your eyes, or you feel like you need to move. But I have such a memory of that smoke billowing just around me, and it smelled so beautiful with the sandalwood and the roses. And it just was like this, like butterflies. I felt like it was like butterflies going all around me. Like I had no feeling of needing to move away from the smoke. It was just like, I just wanted to keep breathing it in. It was so beautiful. So that was unusual for...
And do you remember that Meru then, she broke out in the song, and she wanted everyone to sing. It was, "Those were the days." Do you remember that? I think we sang it 3 times. It was beautiful.
And open up the door.
And open up the door, we sang. And do you remember the other songs, Eruch?
The twins sang,
Oh, they sang something.
You know, but I can't remember what.
It might have they started opening up the.
Maybe they did.
Yeah.
Maybe they did.
I think it's all, I think we did the RT to start.
We did
Yeah, we did the
RT.
Yeah,
RT.
the Australian OIT and the,
Yeah.
the prayers.
The prayers too, yeah.
Well,
Does anybody else have any memories of the smoke or the fire?
This is what I wanted to share. I've talked all the whole time, but I brought one thing to share.
Yeah, come on up, Annie. Yeah.
So it's just a poem. You guys are my family.
Yes, you want to
Listen
listen
to
to it.
Annie's poem. But when I came back, I had such a feeling, a sense space, and I was also spending time up in Amherst at Emily Dickinson's house, and I was also in touch with Coleman Barks, who said, you know, Emily was our ecstatic poet, America's ecstatic poet. So I was in this space, and I wrote a poem, and I wrote it about if Emily died in India, because it kept coming up and up, no pictures. It felt so intimate. Like even we're talking about this wildness, but it also felt like, oh my God, this is like, you can't even really talk about it. It's so intimate. And it was so powerful. And then as we're listening, like I'm like, yes, oh yes, you know, like we just haven't talked about this for a while.
That's why I wanted to do this meeting.
Okay. So I wanted to read this because it just popped up in my, you know how AI is doing that too now, it just popped up. And these pictures also just showed up. I went to my storage to get something out, my jean jacket, and I pulled my jean jacket out, and those copies were there today. So
Wow.
anyway, I think this is a lovely poem, and if you indulge, it's good. If Emily died in India, when she felt her time coming, she collected the best sandalwood from the markets for her fire, to be found after, like little poems sewn into secret books hidden in the upstairs drawer. Before the funeral, they brought her to the foot of her father's chair, in her last white dress. Her woman's body merged with the child's. Women circled her, singing, and waved away the flies. Fragrant flowers framed her face. Ecstatic, beautiful in the death instant, Emily has forbidden photographs. Her brother and his men carry her body on a plank. Amherst stands apart, witness to the beautiful alabaster corpse. The women spread ghee and blooms around her body in spaces created by the banyan logs that are layered in spooning puzzle pieces. Sister Vinnie has already tucked letters tied up with ribbon at her hip. The fire is lit. Strangers arrive and fall in love with the flame. When the body of a great soul burns, blue smoke draws travelers to bow and bear witness. When the body of a great woman burns, her form remains visible in the ash for days. Long bones like narrow spears, heart, pelvis, round egg of skull, the fragile box of shoulders and ribs housing 3 furnaces, gut, heart, and brain, fires with rich jewel centers, and of the 3, heart burns longest. And that's what happened,
Yes.
right?
This is a perfect segue into the burn. That's
Oh,
so
I would
beautiful.
love a copy of that. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
That is so
Oh,
beautiful.
Here you go. Get it with your drawings. Thank you, guys.
That's a perfect segue into then after the fire burned. Generally,
Can I share this
Yes.
scarf? Okay, this is a scarf I wore that day. I had around me, and I wore, I drew some pictures of, but it still smells a little like smoke. And if you just open it up and take a little sniff, don't take it out, but just, yeah. So I'm gonna pass that around. I think it does, maybe it's my imagination, but it also smells like roses, and I don't know how that happened. Just smell a little bit.
because the smoke smelled so much like
It did.
roses. Yeah, it
This
did.
was
Smell like flowers and some.
Yeah.
It was so fragrant, the smoke.
I mean, it really did. My whole sari did, but it's gone. But this, I've kept in a plastic bag so it wouldn't go away.
So then, so after the whole, the people singing and the people stayed for a long time after the pyre was burning, but then then they needed to have some people standing guard to the fire. And generally, the pyre will burn for 24 hours, maybe a day and a half. And they have people that watch it until it goes out, and then once it's cool enough, then they can gather the ashes, the form, so they can entune them. But, Eruch, you might want to take it.
So, when there was still a lot of people around the funeral pyre, and I think songs were still happening, I was sitting with 3 other young guys, about my age, a couple of them are a little younger, and Jal the Stewar came up. It was kind of, I don't know what his official role was there, but he just sort of like...
He's a priest.
He knew a lot about what was going on, and he worked for the trust, I think, right?
He's a trustee.
He was a trustee.
And he was Zoroastrian as well, right?
Yeah.
So he came up to us and said, we would like you boys to be watchmen over the fire. And that normally this falls to like male members of the family, but they're all either exhausted and some of them haven't gotten here yet. So we were just asking, could you do it tonight? For 9. So come at 9 p.m., which is usually when they close the gates, right? It's kind of usually like the end of people wandering around the property and all that. So come at 9 p.m. until, the morning, until like tea time or something. I think 6 in the morning, roughly. And so we were, again, kind of like what Annie said, we sort of all felt useless. A little bit like there's big stuff going on, but we're sort of, sometimes as a pilgrim, it feels like you're just a tourist and there's great stuff to do, but like, it was like, there was a part of me that wanted to do something. So I was like, yeah, we'll do it. Or I said, I'll do it, and everyone else said it as well. And then Billy Goodrum, I can't remember how, but you just showed up, right? Like,
I was there. I was there playing the guitar.
Yeah.
By the fire, by Monty's fire, I was playing guitar and singing songs, and people were singing. We were all singing. And you said to me, well, we're going to stay the night. I was like, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was interesting.
That's just kinda how
I've
it
never
happened.
been outside of the compound so the whole experience was very interesting. Somehow they must have kept it open because there were a lot of people kind of coming and going.
Well, I think to get
first
to the
night.
cremation grounds, I'm trying to remember how the gate there works, if there was even a gate at that point. And
They kept the gate open.
they kept it open because people were coming
The
all
guard
night.
was
That's what I
up.
remember. We were there all night and people were coming all
They
night.
had a watchman guarding.
Yeah, they had a professional.
It's the only fire that nobody messed with ever. Like, it just burned. It was so
Yeah.
amazing.
It was big. I mean, it was big and hot that first night. I remember, but I'd been living in Montana recently, and we had done a lot of outdoor burning of things and whatever. And I did not expect it to, because there wasn't that much wood actually involved. There really was like there was some underneath Monty. I think they stacked on the edges and then piled, as I said, a mountain of fresh flowers, which I don't know, you'd think would impede the fire maybe, and maybe that's what slowed it down. But they also have they have oils in them.
They put the ghee on it and the oil.
Yeah.
And
So
it was incredibly hot.
Yeah. And it was summer, so we had chairs going around the fire. And this was, if you're familiar with the place, there's a uncovered funeral pyre spot and then a covered one. And we were with the covered one because they thought it might rain. It was the monsoon season. I don't think it actually did rain. It drizzled at some point. Yeah.
I don't think so.
So that first night, I don't remember the conversations. I just remember we were all kind of like, wow.
I remember
talking about the day.
Erico coming.
Yeah, Erico.
Erico came, and he showed up, and he chit-chatted with us for a little bit, and then he took a big stick, and started kind of walking up to the fire and just jabbed Monty's skull and broke it.
It usually breaks because of the ghee underneath.
Yeah, well, apparently you want to break it because you don't want
Yeah.
people taking it. That's part of what you do. But we didn't know that. We were all like, we're these young guys. I mean, you know, Erico has authority. Whatever he does, he did with authority. Like you just knew it was the right thing, but it threw us for a minute.
Yeah, I got the impression they didn't want just everyone to be staring at her skull.
At the skull,
At
that's
for
right.
day- You know,
Yeah.
possibly a whole day or whatever. But what I didn't notice at the time that my friend Drew remembered, he has a very good memory, I wish he was here, that when you could start to see Monty's skull, there was a heart shape.
That's right.
Was it at the top of her skull or in the floor? I can't remember, but there was a heart-shaped like bone, like where the bone wasn't. Maybe it was like the crown or something, but it was like a perfect little heart, which I thought was really interesting, but not many people got to see it.
So we stayed up on it. It was Eruch, Dana Brooke, Denise Colt, Drew, and me.
Yeah,
And then people came and went.
yeah. Gary
And
Kleiner,
Gary Kleiner came over. Erica hung out for a while.
Yeah, a lot of
and telling
residents.
stories. And we just stayed awake all night, and then the next morning we went up to Archie.
Yeah, one interesting little thing after that first night that I didn't understand the significance of. Let's see. All right, just a little tidbit, because it turned out I actually did take note of it at the time and wrote about it in my journal, but I didn't know. So I'll just read another excerpt from Heather Nadell. Let's see. And the pyre was extraordinarily long-lasting, for when all was done around the Mandalay had returned to Meherabad and others to their homes and resting places, it went on burning and burning and burning. Normally a pyre would burn for 24 hours, a very large one for 36. The fire of Mani's love must have ignited the very air around her, for pyre burned for 3 days. Even thereafter, the place where she had lain was warm. Those 3 days were another kind of darshan for the Baba lovers who kept round-the-clock vigil at her side, passing the time with songs and stories, energized by the atmosphere of great peace and sweetness that came from the fire. How delighted Mani would have been to see among them young people from the youth Sahavas, recently held at the Baba Center in Myrtle Beach, USA. One of them remarked that Mani's song to Baba, Open Up the Door, which had been sung so often at the youth Sahavas, for the first time really meant something to him because of this experience. And then this is the part that I didn't know about. Even the flora paid her tribute that night. Years ago, Mehera had given a cutting from a Christ cradle plant at Meherabad to grow in the Pilgrim Center. The Christ cradle flower, which Mehera had shown to Baba, is a beautiful white, fragrant flower that blooms only at night and then rarely. On the night of Mani's reunion, all the Christ cradles in the Pilgrim Center bloomed. Only the next morning did anyone notice that there was one more plant outside, stuck away in the corner of the nursery, and had given 7 blooms in the night in direct view of the distant pyre. So here's what I wrote in my journal at the time. So we left to get tea. So whenever tea starts, 6:30 or something, daytime. Other people were kind of coming, so there was always somebody around the fire, but we were pretty tired. And we were like, yeah, we heard chai. We're like, yep, let's get chai. And on the way there, we left the fire to get tea. Jeff was just coming over the second little hill near the pyre, and just in the little valley, a bunch of bushes blazed with these beautiful purple-white flowers, which are called, and I had a blank, because I was going to ask somebody, totally forgot. Drew and I took one as a memento. They had bloomed over last night in the morning. So in my book over here, when we're all done, I have the little flower I just sort of put in between my money exchange receipts or something in my art journal. And I always look back at it like, why did I grab that flower? And I couldn't remember the context until reading Heather's thing and then reading my journal. I'm like, oh, that's what it was all about. And so that was just an interesting little, another little nod. Yeah, okay, one other weird thing, and this was true for all 3 days. I don't know if you guys know the whole political situation with the dogs of Upper and Lower Meherabad, but the Lower Meherabad dogs stay in Lower Meherabad, and the Upper Meherabad dogs, which were I think taken care of by Mansari at the time,
Mansari's dogs.
they stayed up on the hill. And if ever there was any crossover, there could be fights, apparently. I think I've heard them in the distance. I didn't know what was going on. But for this 3 days, this kind of tan little, mutt mix Indian dog came down from the hill and stood watch by the fire for the whole time. And none of the whole time. And none of the dogs bothered it. And as soon as the fire was over, the dog went back up the hill, and that's where it lived. So that was really interesting. So Drew took a photo of the dog, just like at the base of the thing, without getting the fire in there. But yeah, that was one of the interesting little things that people didn't, like, I didn't really take that much note of it at the time. It was later when I heard the context, I was like, oh, that's what the deal was with that dog, huh?
And here's Teri's drawing of it, of the
Yeah.
dog.
Is the dog there?
Oh, yeah, there's the dog, right?
He stayed there the whole time. It was really extraordinary.
And that was really unusual for
Yeah.
that dog to, they just knew they weren't supposed to come down,
Yeah.
so. But but after 3 days, the fire burned, which was, 3 whole days, that fire.
Well, that day, I mean, we thought, I don't remember what it looked like exactly when we left that first day, but I thought, wow, that was one of a kind experience. I'm up, adrenaline's going, get some chai, then they're like, oh, Meherabad day? Yeah, what the heck, I'll just stay up rather than sleep. And long drive to Meherabad, I just sort of fell asleep in one of these little side rooms where we had lunch. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm more tired. And it's good that I did, because I woke up, and then Dana came up to me and said, yeah, they want us to do the watch again tonight. I think the fire's gonna keep going. And I was like, what, 2 days in a row? And I honestly barely have any memory of that second day. When Billy gets back, he might, but like, it's hard to differentiate, because we were very tired, and they started to blur together. And then again, leave. This time I'm like, all right, I'm sleeping. I don't know what's gonna happen. But the fire, it seemed like it should be low enough to where it'll just burn out during the day.
Yeah.
And again, sometime in the afternoon of the third day, they're like, nope, this fire's still going. We need you guys one more night, just one more night. We think it'll be done. Do you have any memory of like second or prior to the third day thing? It really just
I
wasn't.
think sleep deprivation has blocked all that out.
There were just bodies there.
We were just there. I remember still strumming the guitar.
But the other thing was that, first of all, like, if you left the fire, you just felt like you were
You missed
losing a
it.
lover. Like,
Yeah.
the fire was sort of alive in your, so I go to sleep and you wake up and go, I gotta get out there. And just, like, people were just coming and going.
Yeah.
But also, people were having to leave their pilgrimage. So like people were having to go back to Bombay and get on planes, and other people were coming and kind of hit with this, like, so there'd be new people going, what's up? And then there'd be people just weeping at that fire because they had to leave and it wasn't out yet.
There was no pilgrimage I've ever had before or since that was anything like that. That's for sure. I mean, it was completely unique. But I had one little postscript, if I could.
Yeah, I want to have the postscript of when they opened up the fire, yeah, that when they finished burning.
Well, mine is even after that.
Okay, so let me then say,
Yeah,
because
fair.
then after the third day, when it finally was cool enough to go and gather the ashes, I remember I came down and I was there, and they were going through, sort of scraping through the ashes, and for 3 days that fire burned, hot as can be, and there was a whole, I think it was her whole heart area that had flowers, roses that were not burned.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were not burned.
They didn't
And-
burn.
and They were like, there's one there, I have it, I was given one because I came to there. And you can see that it's a rosebud, I'll pass it around, and she has some too. And it has like singed on it, but it didn't burn. So like this whole thing around her heart was full of rosebuds that didn't burn. And how that happened, nobody knows.
I have a story that just to add to that, what she's saying, is that, we went, Sherry Keller was there, my daughters, and I think Pamela, we went down, and Mehera said to me, he said, we want to, just see what we can
Speak
do
Say
there.
goodbye.
And she said, don't ask permission, you just get forgiveness. And so we went down and we have crystals that were there. I took some of her ash, which is here. Oh my goodness.
Where are
Ash
the
is falling.
crystals?
And there's crystals in here, and these are roses that were burning. I think I gave the crystals to no, there's one. Marilyn and Molly, I got these for them, and Shireen Bonner, but I have more. So this is ash from her body, and this is roses. And if you can just carefully, they still smell.
Just leave them on the
like-
table.
Oh, I should leave them on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
People pick 'em up.
I
I don't
think
think that's a hassle.
I don't mind,
Yeah.
I just have one rose in there, so
Yeah.
just don't take it out.
Oh, and here's a piece of sandalwood that somehow I got, that was Monty's, and that was also, I don't know how I got it. But there it
I
is.
got a postscript.
Oh,
Well, let me
postscript.
go, before that, it was just interesting, the last night, everyone, I guess again, it was like 6:30 in the morning. Gary, I think we retold the story of every men's play from the youth office, from the first one
Yes.
to the
That's right.
1996 one, in detail, probably way too much detail. And then Erico and Ted had been, Judson had been kind of coming and going. And then when it was like daylight, okay, the fire's really out, everyone was leaving, so for some reason Drew and I just stayed, and then Erico and Ted came back, and he had the urn that they were gonna use. And he's like, hey guys, help us fill the urn. And so we went through and just like, none of us have been touching the fire at all. It did not need us like doing anything. It was built in this kind of shape where it just was burning pretty much. So it was this kind of intense and
What did you use? Shovels?
I think we just used our hands because it had cooled down enough, and they weren't trying to get every part of it. They were trying to get, it was like a box, an ornate little box, probably about that big. And so just, some flowers too, actually, but just ashes, and he may have had a little shovel for the ashes. And then shards of bone, just like prominent ones that they didn't want to leave behind. And it was just kind of like, whoa, we didn't know we were signing up for this, but it was a very intimate kind of moment, actually. And I went into the urn, and then actually Drew and I stayed longer than most of our family and everyone to when they actually did the internment. But that's a whole nother story, but yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, but it was much longer after that, the internment.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
quite a while.
Like, I think months.
Weeks. No,
Months.
No, it was
couple
weeks, it was
weeks.
weeks, but it was.
It was weeks.
Because
several
they had to
weeks.
paint the inside.
They had to dig, because
Yeah.
that
Well, that's-
side of the tomb was just nothing. There was no tomb on that right side. It was
Yeah.
just dirt. People could walk up and down all the time.
Well, that was my postscript, was that I got wind that they were gonna start digging the hole to put the ashes into interment. So I walked up the hill, and Ted is just standing there, and there's all these workers digging. And I said, hey, Ted, can I dig? And he said, you wanna dig? I was like, yeah, it's mine, I wanna dig. And so I got one of the pickaxe things in the dirt dish from one of the workers who looked at me like I was crazy. And I started digging, and I was digging, and I hit like a rock, what I thought was a rock, and I pull it out, and it's flat stucco on one side, and it's like kind of concrete material on this side, and so I'm holding it, and Ted walks over, he goes, what you got there? And I said, that, and he takes it, and he goes, you got a piece of the samadhi. Go put it in your locker. Don't tell anyone where it came from. Don't tell anybody about it, and take it home with you.
Do you have that piece?
It's in my house. Yeah. But he was like, don't tell anyone.
Well, now you told that.
Well, that was at the time. Don't tell Ted.
Don't tell Ted.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Some
You didn't
earlier
bring it. Why
iteration.
didn't you bring it?
I didn't think about that. I was just thinking about the day. I was thinking about the day. The day and the nights that we spent there at the funeral pyre.
Well, thank you to everybody. I hope that we did justice to this extraordinary experience, but I also just want to say that also in the day, we were there for about another, I think, week and a half or so. I can't remember exactly when we left, but in the time after, they were giving away some of Mani's things to people who were there. And I actually have an extraordinary picture, the one picture I could take of Mani giving my daughter, Goher giving my daughter one of Mani's little necklaces, beaded necklaces. And the picture is just so extraordinary because it's Goher, the way she's over my daughter Mani, and you could see the grief on her face. It was so palpable to be there after when they were just feeling the loss of their beloved companion and sister. But one of the things that Goher gave me was an outfit of Mani's, which is right in there, a Punjabi outfit. And I remember her saying that, she said, I want you to wear this. She said Mani would always want people to wear things she gave them. So please don't wrap it up in archival cloth and put it away. So I did, I wore it many times. I wore the pants in India several times, and the dress I got to wear, I wore a few times, but I did wear the dress when I was in Meherabad. I don't know if you were there, Billy, when we did the New Life play, Ralph and Michaeline.
Oh, was it?
Well, we did the New Life play, and I was Mani. I played Mani, and so I got to wear Mani's outfit. And so when I had that on, I just instantly was Mani. It was very easy to assume the Mani role. So you feel free to come up and take a look at all of these things here.
Wait, can I tell this one story?
Absolutely, come on
So,
up.
okay, so this was Charlotte's first trip. Charlotte is, what does she do now? I forget what she does, but she's around Asheville.
Who?
Charlotte. She
Your
has
daughter?
some job, I can't
Oh,
remember.
you're confusing me.
Sorry, Charlotte works at Chaitani. But this was her first trip to India. But on my first trip to India, Charlotte wasn't raised by her father, just raised by me. Mani knew that, and she pulled me aside and asked me all about my baby and my family. And she said, well, Baba will be her father, said to me. And I was a walk-on. I wasn't even sure I was staying. But so bringing her to India and then having her not be able to meet Mani was really sad for me. And I kept like going, Baba, what? Come on, you know. And then when Mani died and we got to, like, Charlotte put flowers next to her body and bowed to her feet and all that stuff. So we're flying home on the plane. I said, what was your favorite part of your trip? Meeting Mani.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my God, thank you, Baba, that feels so good. But what she meant, meeting Mani, your kid. Oh. But I didn't know it. I know, but I didn't know it until she was like 30. And I was like, thanks for the grace there. That is so funny.
Well, thank you all, and Jay, Meherabad, I'm so glad we finally got this meeting done. And there's tea and refreshments back
Did you
there.
bring your guitar? I was thinking we could
I did not.
Open up the door.
I didn't bring it.
Avatar Meherabad ki jai. Avatar Meherabad ki jai. Avatar Meherabad ki jai.